Tom Clark's Main Event is a Boink Studios production. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Boink Studios, and check us out on boinkstudios.com, where you can see all of our projects, past, present, and future. And now, on with the show.
This is Daddy's show. Step off.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to the program, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Clark, and you are listening to Tom Clark's Main Event. This is episode number 76 of the podcast, and if you're joining us today for the very first time, we will bid you welcome. If you're coming back for a repeat visit, we say, hey, thanks for checking back in with us. And to all those involved, we'll extend to you, as always, the customary laurel and a hearty handshake. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading. Thanks for supporting. And hey, thanks for always being there, Doc. Episode 76. Sometimes I sit back and marvel at how many of these things we've done. And then I look at other podcasts that I follow and think, man, we've done nothing. It's like a drop in the ocean, man. That's all it is. But you know what, though? I'm proud of what we've done here at Boink Studios. I'm happy with the show. Hope you are as well. Thanks once again for coming back and hanging out with us. This is the show. Glad you are with us. Of course, as always, I'm Tom, and this is the flagship podcast for Boink Studios. We have two others. One is Tom and Kyle's Comedy Action Hour, and one is Tom Clark's Main Event. And as we speak, the cat is attempting to get into the door. And he's going to probably meow to his little heart's content in an effort to get in here. But as much as we love the mascot, we have a show to do. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to go ahead and tell you right now that this particular episode took place on the road on the day of Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina on June 17th, 2017, the year of our Lord. And on the drive back from the Heroes Con, good friend Greg Ramsey and myself got into a discussion about the old days of pro wrestling, and I stopped him and I said, you know what, we should just do a show because this is good podcast material. So I got the recorder out, hit the button, and away we went. So that's what this is. What you are about to hear is the audio from the trip back from Heroes Con 2017. Good stuff. This was supposed to have been part 2 of Heroes Con or Bust from Tom Clark's 30-Minute Fun Show. However, my sidekick, my co-host on that program, my son Wesley, as you know, decided to take a nap in the back seat, so he was not available, as it were. He was dead to the world on the drive back. He didn't wake up to the very end of this show, actually. So this time the main event, and we tried to come up with a good one here, but it really all it is. This time the main event, the title is Old School Memories. And that's what it is. It's just Greg and myself talking about the old days of the NWA, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and Jim Crockett Promotions. And as you guys know, I am based out of North Carolina. Please don't hold that against me. And I grew up on Jim Crockett Promotions, the best wrestling in the world, in my opinion, that there ever has been and ever will be, for sure. And I've always been of that opinion, by the way, and nothing's ever going to change that, to be honest with you. But Greg was raised in the same fashion, watching the same wrestling. And, I've said this before on the program, that WWF was certainly on the TV. However, it wasn't one of those things that we just tuned to. And we're going to cover that in this episode, actually. And Greg was sort of the same mindset. But the way things have changed between now and 30 years ago, well, now and 10 years ago, is amazing changes. Some folks will call it an evolution. Some will call it a de-evolution. I don't know where you come on that, how you come down on that. But I've got my own feelings on that, to be honest with you. And we've covered that at length here on the program, as well as in my columns that I publish online. So, there's plenty of time to go back and forth about the good and bad of of the old school versus the new school and that kind of thing. And I've written about that very topic many times in the past. But this show is just more about a celebration of the old days and what we miss the most about it and how we wished it would make a comeback in some form or fashion. And so that's what episode 76 is. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the audio to you, let you check it out, and immediately after the audio wraps up, we'll be back here to close out the show. So hang tight, folks, and here we go. Okay, so this is the podcast. You just got the intro from, well, me, and we're off and running. Anyway, so yeah, as I said in the intro, the plan here was to do an episode of Tom Clark's 30-Minute Fun Show. However, that did not come to pass because the boys passed out in the seat. So this is the main event. So, Greg, have I ever had you on the main event?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Or did we? Didn't we do that episode that year we went to the con and came back and it was the comparison of comic books and wrestling?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I ought to throw you out of here just for not remembering that. I didn't remember it either, though, so it's okay. So we were having a discussion here on the way back from the Heroes Con this year. And I thought maybe we should just go ahead and start recording this because we were having a pretty good conversation about the past, about the NWA, Ric Flair, and the good old days. But we were just talking about Flair and how his character, back during his prime of the NWA, of course, when we both hated the guy, but we sort of saw that he had like a mutual respect, not only from fans, but from his peers alike. I mean, remember seeing those guys in the old Superstation TBS studio? The guys were dressed in suits, holding up the four fingers with the sunglasses.
Yeah, I hated those guys too.
Yeah, see, I hated them too, man. But, I mean, that was sort of one of the first moments where it kind of occurred to me, wow, maybe these guys are cool. But then Dusty and Magnum would come out, and I forgot all about the Horsemen. Because I was such a fan of Dusty and Magnum and Rock and Roll Express. So
same here.
It's amazing, man, how things were back in the day. A lot easier then, I think. Harder and easier at the same time, maybe. Because now pro wrestling is, some people say evolved. I say it's de-evolved into some sort of, daredevil stunt show, which is what I refer to it.
Well, it's the truth. I mean, you look at all these guys getting hurt, left and right. Why are they getting hurt?
Too risky, right?
Yeah.
They're not working a match. They're working from one spot to another.
They're going for that wow factor.
They are. And I just don't, when you don't tell me a story, I lose interest. And I feel like that's what's happening right now. I feel like I'm losing interest in it. And I think it's hard. It's hard for your average fan to connect to what's going on when they go 100 miles an hour in the ring.
Exactly.
They don't take the time to tell a story. I mean, that's not how it was back in the day. You'd see storylines back in the day go for months on end. I mean, Dusty worked Rick for a year, I think.
I know, and I never got tired of it.
Well, because they didn't often have the same match every time. They would throw in, little subtle nuances into the match. Baby Doll could be at ringside, or JJ could be at ringside, or both, or whatever. And it's, there was always different factors involved. Could be a cage match, could be a bunkhouse match, could be anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was, you hear those veteran pro wrestling fans like us talk about the good old days, and you get sick of it and stuff. I can imagine when I was growing up, there was guys around me talking about the 50s and the 60s.
Probably so, yeah.
How those were the days. But it's just not like it was before.
I think the 80s and then the Attitude Era, that was probably the last great time in wrestling.
Did you know? Pardon me, that's so rude. It's a long day, man. Did you know that the highest rated segment in the history of Raw to this day, you know what it is? Do you remember?
No.
This Is Your Life segment with The Rock and Mankind.
Really?
It drew like an 8.4 or something.
Wow.
Which is unheard of. But it remains the single highest rated segment of all time in that company.
I would have thought Austin or something.
Yeah, I don't know what I would have thought it was. I don't know. I don't know that I would have ventured a guess. Had you asked me before I knew that little nugget, I don't know if I would have had a good answer. But it just took off, and they've tried to recreate it a couple of times to no avail, because you can't recreate magic.
Yeah.
You know, and just goes to show you. I mean, people talk about, we're talking about, you know, it's a different time, and things aren't the way they used to be back in the good old days, as I call them. However, at the same time, you can't really compare today's business with yesterday's business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's not really fair, I guess.
Well, because the Monday Night Wars have ended, and because of that, you're not getting that spike in ratings.
There's nobody to push Vince and WWE, I guess.
No, I mean, there's other guys out there, but you know, it's not what it used to be, of course. I mean, you've got TNA's out there, Ring of Honor's out there, New Japan's out there, but they're not exactly
on the level as WWE.
Yeah, they're not immediate competition. Now, New Japan could put on some hellacious shows, but New Japan style gets slammed by fans too. The strong style.
Yeah.
If you have to call it, all right. Here's my take on the strong style. I may be more familiar with New Japan than you are, but strong style to me, isn't all pro wrestling supposed to be strong style? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see your point.
Aren't you supposed to be trying to hit the other guy anyway? I mean, storyline, right?
Yeah.
But to call it strong style is to suggest that, okay, guys, this is fake, but we hit a little bit harder for strong style. But doesn't that just blow the storyline all to pieces? That just blows kayfabe all to pieces.
Yeah.
I don't know. That kind of thing is what a lot of people have a problem with. I guess I do too, to a certain degree. But, yeah, man, it just, like I said, it just wasn't like it was. And I remember being at home every Saturday, 6:05 on the Superstation. Every Saturday evening.
Yeah. I woke up every Saturday morning, you know, turn on the TV, and I got to see wrestling.
Yep.
NWA. That was...
Worldwide Wrestling.
Yep.
That's good stuff. What a time, man. I mean, I still watch it. I watch it on the network all the time. If I'm writing a column, or maybe I might be working on something, or I'll have it at the background. I'll have it on my TV as I'm writing, and I'll just pick random episodes of World Championship Wrestling, which is not WCW. I'm not talking about WCW.
Yeah.
I'm talking about NWA World Championship Wrestling.
And it was done right.
Yes. I mean, there's two trains of thought on this thing. Is that when Crockett sold out to Turner, that okay, they made it into a global force. I get it. They had more presence on TV internationally than they'd ever had before. I get that too. However, at the same time, everything began to change. It wasn't like it was before. So you had like different people calling the shots. You had non-wrestling people becoming bosses, which was very weird. It was just an odd time for the business. And I mean, WWE was doing great business as it always had, but then you had NWA becoming WCW, trying to compete. And I remember when the name changed to World Championship Wrestling, they're trying to give it the feel of something big,
right?
Like World Wrestling Federation.
Yeah, to me, I don't know. It just it wasn't the same.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, suddenly the Lights Out bunkhouse matches suddenly had a very, territorial feel to it, which it was. It was Texas style match,
Yeah.
bull rope match, and things like that, which we loved. At the same time, you can't put down the worldwide stage with blood and guts, and you have like a Texas cowbell match in, Louisiana or something. Or even worse, New York. What's that have to do with, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it just wasn't right.
Well, it just had like an odd feel to it. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people felt like kept the NWA down for a long time. Yeah, it didn't feel right. However, I had to say that the concept of And I guess it worked because they said it. They said it was going to work for that matter, so it worked. But World Championship Wrestling, and I guess when you hear those words, it really did make you think of like a global company versus the National Wrestling Alliance, which of course, National Wrestling Alliance didn't change. It just, Turner bought Crockett, and Crockett split from the NWA. NWA still existed, but however, it was not what it was before without Crockett, and it has never been the same since then. Of course, we have to mention that Billy Corrigan recently purchased the NWA.
I did not know that.
How did you not know that? That happened about a month ago, I think.
Huh.
Now, it's been fairly quiet since that happened. I don't know how much he paid for it. Here's hoping he didn't overpay, and here's hoping that he can do something with it. I mean, Corrigan's got that Smashing Pumpkins money, but I don't know how much money we're talking. I don't know how much money he's willing to invest in it. He's a major fan. He's a smart guy. There's guys that have been in TNA and around the business who know him on a personal level and have been around him and said he's a very smart guy.
Well, hopefully he'll surround himself with knowledgeable wrestling people.
Yes.
Minds, that is.
Yes, because you don't want, you don't want to see any company go down the way WCW went down. I mean, the first problems WCW had was thanks to Jim Herd, who was, executive for Pizza Hut, he knew somebody and said, I want to get in the wrestling business. So they put him in as president of WCW, and it was a huge, terrible waste of time. And everybody hated him, and he was a blithering idiot. And he went right back to Pizza Hut after they fired him, by the way. I think it was Pizza Hut. But, when non-wrestling people get in charge of the product, and that's a lot of the slam against today's WWE product, is that there's too many non-wrestling people sitting around that big table writing storylines. And I don't know how you feel about that, but to me, that's sort of what we're talking about, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do that. You'd think you'd want to get the people that know what they're doing, making the decisions.
It's like if you step into a new job that you have no history in and you've never done it for a living, wouldn't you want to get the crew that works under you to be very experienced and knowledgeable, like you said? It doesn't make any sense. Hey, Tom, we're going to have you defusing nuclear warheads. Cool. I don't know what I'm doing. So can I have people around me that do know what they're doing? And I'll just sort of try to organize them and make it work. And tell you, here, I'm going to try to do the best we can, not blow us all up. That kind of thing. No, it never made any sense to me. There was a lot of wrestling minds behind the stage, like Cowboy Bill Watts was running it, I think, before Jim Herd got a hold of it. And, remember him, Bill Watts? He ran the UWF. He was an old-time wrestler himself. He got Jim Ross his break in the business and everything, so...
Well, yeah. That's a big thing right there.
Oh, yeah, man. Are you of the mindset that Jim Ross is the greatest commentator of all time?
Yeah, I believe so.
See, I love Gordon Soley. It's real hard for me to put him above Gordon. I like JR a lot. But, I'm glad WWE has brought him back. He's not full-time, but he's back in some capacity, which is better than nothing. I think that WWE has a responsibility to the entire industry to do right by as many guys and gals as they possibly can, because they are the face of pro wrestling in this country and around the world, really.
Yeah, you want to take care of those people.
So we can't talk about the NWA, WWF back in the old school days without talking about the tremendous differences that there was between the two. Because, and I've said this on the show here before, I've written this in columns over the years, that to me, the WWF was circus wrestling, cartoon wrestling, right?
Yeah.
I always compared Vince McMahon to, the ringleader of the big top.
Barnum Bailey,
yes. And WWF was a 3-ring circus. And I believe that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how it was for a long time.
NWA was real. It was more real. And you could believe it.
It had a grittier feel to it. It felt like it was actually happening right in front of you. And they talk about the dimly lit arenas and, NWA didn't have the best lighting around, but that to me added to the ambiance of it. It added to the effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't tune into wrestling to see the fans. I tuned in to watch the matches.
And they had some really good matches.
Oh my God, dude!
Some of the best ever.
Well, just think about, where did Vince get all of his talent when he took over the industry? He got it from the territories.
True, he picked them.
Cherry picked every coat he could get his hands on. I mean, he took Steamboat, Piper, Valentine. I mean, Morales. I mean, you hear that boy's snoring back there. I have a snoring 8-year-old in my back seat, folks. The extra sound effects for this episode of The Main Event brought to you by Wesley Clark. But yeah, it was a lot different time, man. But WWF was circus wrestling to me. Like I knew it was on the TV, but I never went looking for it. If I didn't have any of the wrestling to watch for that particular evening, I would watch it just because I was a wrestling guy, and I wanted as much as I could get my hands on. However, I didn't care for Hogan. Piper was funny, but he became a cartoon character. WWF insists on replaying that spot with the coconut on Jimmy Snuka's head. I just didn't find that entertaining. Is it just me?
Yeah, I didn't either. I mean, in fact, because I was a kid and I believed it, that, it really, it made me mad. I hated Piper after that.
Right. I just didn't see the point of it. Like, I'd seen Roddy Piper. I'd seen Greg Valentine and Roddy Piper in the dog collar match for Starrcade, and how gruesome it was. And that was the Roddy Piper I knew. And all of a sudden, here he is being outlandish, which Piper was outlandish anyway, and that's fine. But, Vince McMahon just tells you to turn the volume up and takes you from being a, sort of a hard-nosed wrestler and turns you into a sports entertainer, as it were. And you can use the word performer, but they're all performers, right? So just think about what they did with Adrian Adonis.
Yeah, no.
I mean, Adrian Adonis in the territory system wore black leather. He had a biker gimmick. He was a bad dude. He gets to WWF. All of a sudden he's wearing pink, dresses like a woman, wears makeup. And you're questioning his, his lifestyle. So, yeah, I don't know, man. That was there again. It's just one of those things where Vince had a vision. He knew what he wanted to get across. He felt like his way was the best way. He said, "I don't want to look like the territories. I don't want to look like the dimly lit arenas. I want to brighten it up. I want to give life to it. I want to put the emphasis on the characters instead of the matches."
I respect that, but at the same time, I didn't like a lot of the stuff he did with, some of the faces from NWA or, wherever else. I don't know. It just kind of ruined that character or whatever.
Well, look at the Bushwhackers. The Bushwhackers in the territories were the Sheep Herders. Sheep Herders were violent, aggressive, a hardcore wrestling tag team. Bloody, just mean. And Vince took one look at him and said, "Let's make him into clowns."
Yeah.
So they did the whoa and yay and all that marching around garbage. And it got over, and kids loved him, and they probably sold a lot of merchandise off of it, I'm sure. But to me, it was a joke. You're looking for A, aren't you?
A?
I think so.
51B.
Go B. Or we could go C. We're currently navigating the highway, folks. It's funny how Tom Clark's 30-minute fun show is always on the road. Yeah, you're good. Is always mobile podcast. We've often joked we should have called it Tom Clark's 30-minute road show, because Wesley and I are always on the road. And now this time the main event is coming to you mobile as well, or mobile, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Up to you. I got a great big wall of death beside of me. That's fun. Reminds me of Tennessee. I don't know why.
Does Tennessee have a lot of walls?
I think so. There's that, like right as you come in the backside of town, there's those great big rock walls, That's what it makes me think of. You can go straight. Yeah, go straight. Don't take off on the exit. No, straight.
That's what I was saying.
There you
Yeah. It's kind of hard to see with the sun.
No, I get you. So, yeah, cartoon wrestling. Not to mention the animals that were present.
Coco Beware.
The parrot.
British Bulldog.
The snake.
Yeah.
What else? Wasn't there something else? Steamboat had the Komodo dragon.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man. And I love Steamboat too, but I never understood all that. Look, let's make Steamboat look like a Gila monster. Remember they put that fan over his head?
Yeah, they had him, I know, his elaborate costumes.
Yes.
And then that's, yeah, like you said, that's not the Steamboat that I remember.
Which, you know, you could look at that and you could say, well, okay, so Vince put new gear on them and accentuated their personality, so that means it's bad? Not necessarily. But he just cartooned the whole thing up.
Yeah, I mean, they still got in the ring and put on, you know, a good show.
Yeah. And really, pro wrestling to me, then at that point when I was a kid to this point today as a man, pro wrestling to me, and you could talk about the eternal struggle of good versus evil, right versus wrong, the light versus the darkness, and all that's true. But to me, pro wrestling in its very simplest form is two guys have a problem and they're going to settle it in the ring. That's it. That's the definition of pro wrestling. Two guys have a problem, they're going to settle it in the ring. That's it. They don't settle it in a courtroom. They don't settle it on paper with attorneys. They don't settle it through a mediator. They get into a ring, 20 by 20 ring, and they proceed to try to hurt each other physically to the point where they can win the match.
Yeah, it makes you think back to the old movies, John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. And, you know,
Yes.
Those really real tough guys. Man.
Right. But now it's not about that. Pro wrestling now is about high spots. Pro wrestling now is about the Daredevil stunt show. That's what I keep calling it. It's like if there's 10 guys, but it's like watching 10 Evil Knievel's. Even Charlotte, who I have a lot of respect for the women's division, of course, does that backflip off the ropes onto the floor.
Wow.
I mean, she's done it to Sasha, and I'm like, is this necessary? Like, can't you get your point across without risking life and limb?
I think it's changed so much, you know, that now, you know, they have to try to outdo each other, maybe.
That's probably it. They're raising the bar, to be sure. Which can be a bit tiresome. Because you want to feel like you're watching competitive matches. But oftentimes it just feels like that, again, they're just competing with each other so you can get the bigger high spot.
Yeah, where's the psychology, the drama?
No drama, no psychology, no storytelling. That's the problem. And, you know, as long as that's the case, there's always going to be an issue with it. I think guys like Sami Zayn have got it wrong. I think that their definition of what pro wrestling is off base. Kenny Omega over in New Japan, completely off kilter, completely off base. Guy has no clue. And he's hailed as being one of the best in the world. I take exception to that. Because just because you can match a guy move for move, and you can go through the motions of a match does not mean that you're telling a story, in my opinion.
So you're saying there's something missing there, obviously.
Yes, and to your point, they're trying to outdo each other, but it's become the new style. And as long as it's the new style, every guy that comes into this point to WWE is going to believe this is how I have to work. It's not safe. There's such a thing that wrestlers refer to as their bump card. That when they wrestle a dangerous match, that they took a lot of bumps off their bump card, because you only have a limited window in which to make money in the business, and it's that's your bump card. And the more you use it up, the younger you are, the less time you're going to have when you get older.
Right.
Because you're going to hit 40, not be able to walk, or not be able to walk without painkillers, and that's not good. That's not working for anybody. So I think guys like Sami Zayn have it wrong. And again, you mentioned psychology. That's a big thing to me, is psychology of the business. If your opponent is outside the ring and you're on that side of the ring where he's on the floor, this is what Sami does. Sami can slide out of the ring, grab his opponent, give him a couple forearm shivers or something, toss him back in the ring, work him over. Okay? But no, Sammy stands there when he could just as easily slide out of the ring. Sammy stands there, looks around for crowd approval. Because now it's all about what the fans want. It's not about psychology and pacing of a match. It's about popping the fans, these guys. So he looks around to get to see the fans' approval, I should say. And once he has it, he runs across the ring, away from his opponent, back to his opponent so he can dive over the top rope onto his opponent. Now, wouldn't it have been a heck of a lot easier to just slide out the ring, grab the guy, put him back in the ring, do your business?
I tell you, George South would have said so.
I agree with that. Being around George South was a blast because the guy pulls no punches, literally. He pulls no punches. And, he doesn't. He said the first time the guy did a 450 on him. And I forget who he said. He said the first time he saw a 450 or had a 450 done to him, he said he got slammed in the corner. And the guy bent down and said, just stay right here. And he goes to climb the rope. George said he looks up at him and says, where are you going, brother? Like yells at him because he didn't know where he was going. Next thing you know, he's coming off at the 450. He gets backstage. He's like, what the heck was that crap? So it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, for me to believe, you got to suspend disbelief a lot of times. Just to be a pro wrestling fan, you have to suspend your disbelief, right?
Yeah.
But for me to believe that a grown man who works out, got good cardio, has went through a 10-minute match, he's a little banged up, but for me to believe that he's going to lay there and be so out of it and so hurt, so winded, so unconscious, or whatever he wants me to believe, that he's going to lay there and take a 450, that he doesn't have the wherewithal to get up and move. And then not only take it, but kick out. Well, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
If you have the energy to kick out, why don't you just roll out of the way?
Yeah, I mean, you still have to have that believability to it, that factor.
A lot of it's gone. A lot of it's just gone, man. A lot of the believability, easy for me to say, a lot of the believability in wrestling is just out the window, like it doesn't matter anymore, which is a shame.
And getting back to what we said about the guys trying to outdo each other, the high spots, maybe the fans have been trained now, this new generation have been trained to expect that. To expect it, yeah, I get you. So it's a chicken and egg situation. I read about this recently, actually. Chicken and egg situation. Because the guys can say, in the locker room, well, look, fans want something big. I got to give them something big. If I don't give something big, I'm not going to get over. So I got to do this. But then you go online and look what fans like us are talking about. Man, I'm tired of seeing the stunts. I'm sick of this. But fans live pop over it. So as long as the guys are hearing the reaction, right, they don't care what you say on Facebook or Twitter. You know what I mean? It's like their drug, their few 5-second drug. Yeah, it's their natural high, and they hear approval. So what are they going to do? They're obviously going to do it again. They're going to continue doing it because they think that's what you're supposed to. Like, to your point, they think that's what you're supposed to do, and they think that's what people want. The truth is, if you present people with a logical pro wrestling match, remember the promo that Miz cut on Daniel Bryan on Talking Smack after SmackDown that night? Did you see that? I missed it.
He cuts a promo on Daniel, and he says, the reason you don't like me, and the reason people criticize me, they say, well, I don't do this or don't do that. I'm not flashy, not this, that, and that. And he's like, in my entire WWE career, I've never had one serious injury. I never missed any time, never went on the bench, because I don't do those things. So he flat out said it.
And he doesn't need to.
Doesn't need to. Miz can get heat because he's good on the mic. He's really never been better than he is right now on the stick, for sure. Dude could talk a blue streak, right? And can get over like crazy.
And I can remember when he first came in, how he was a joke. We thought, he'll never amount to anything.
I know.
He's come light years from that.
He flubbed his words, remember? He stumbled over himself. His self-confidence has really never been better. I mean, just the amazing amount of self-confidence this guy has and his ability to tell a story, to talk on the mic. He works really an NWA traditional style. It's all on the mat. He goes up top every now and then, but it's really not ever for that much. But he stays safe. And guess what? You stay safe, that means you keep working.
That's right. It means you're on TV again the next week.
Yeah, that's true. Someone's waking up in the back. Are we awake? Yes. But yeah, look how many guys around him, younger than him, go on the shelf, like you said. Missing time. And money's guaranteed, pretty much. I mean, I think they still get paid when they're hurt. There was a time when you didn't get paid when you were hurt. When Stone Cold went out with a neck injury, he didn't get paid. He still got his merchandise royalties. But he wasn't getting paid, I don't think. I mean, don't quote me on that, but it seemed like he said he wasn't getting paid. But, nah, dude, like, you got to get back on the card.
Yeah, and like you said about guys missing time, I remember watching Cody Rhodes come back from an injury one night, and his dad, Dusty, was in the ring talking about, it's like, you got hurt, you lost your spot.
Yeah.
And somebody else came in and took it.
Right. Yeah, I remember that now. It's true. Well, if anybody knew what they were talking about, it was Dusty. By the way, the 2-year anniversary of Dusty's death just passed.
I can't believe it's already been 2 years.
I know, isn't that terrible? That's something else. The business lost maybe the most genius mind the industry's ever seen in Dusty Rhodes. I don't know who could even compare him to.
It'd be hard to dispute that, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, got to be the most creative mind of all time. And there's been several, but he has got to be tops. I mean, just, he knew what he was doing. And he knew how to gauge the fans. He knew how to feel them out, what they wanted, what they didn't. And, of course, being an executive backstage is a lot different than, being a worker in the ring. I mean, it's a lot different thing. But he had the internal gauge to know how to handle both.
He was able to adapt.
Yes.
When his wrestling days were over.
And WWE, I mean, those guys in NXT will tell you that none of them would have been the same without him, because he was, that veteran that had been there and done that. If you're going to take direction from anybody, how in the world do you take from anybody other than a veteran like Dusty Rhodes? The guy has already done everything. It's like, and I've said this to my kid before about when he starts to get dating age. I mean, I'm going to be the guy to give him advice because I've seen just about everything. So that's the same idea, I believe, for pro wrestlers. You need to go to the wise old man in the room and get his advice. And it's the same in the NBA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When rookies come in, they tend to go to the veterans and pick their brain.
Well, some would do and some don't, I guess.
That's true, because they think they know it all already.
Yeah, some come in and they think they're the best in the world. Jericho.
Yeah. Jericho. Thought you were going to see him Punk there. I miss Punk. It's hard to talk about Punk because I miss the guy so much. What is happening up there? Look at that.
Smog.
A puff of black smoke.
Puff the magic
and a
dragon.
hearty hi-yo silver. I don't know where they came from.
Well, honestly, I miss Punk too. I wish he would come back.
I recently did a countdown of the best Money in the Bank moments so far. And my number one Money in the Bank moment was the night in Chicago when CM Punk beat John Cena for the championship. And he ran out of the building, remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
And he ran out the side exit, went back to his hotel and put the belt in the refrigerator and took a picture of it. I'm like, what? And they played out like he was gone. That was the end of it.
I remember.
He goes to a Comic-Con and was it Triple H showed up? Or no, Triple H was on the panel. And they were talking about Punk, and Triple H said, I want to talk to him. I'd love to talk to him. Because they were playing it out like Punk was gone. They were trying to get the belt back and all this other stuff.
Yeah. So they were at least trying to, make it believable.
And we all know the story of Punk. It's been well documented in his words. And if you've never heard the story of Punk, I highly suggest you go to YouTube and you find the podcast with him and Colt Cabana. You have to hear it. In Punk's words, what happened. You can choose to believe him. You can choose not to believe him. Entirely up to you. But in his own words, Punk gives you his side of the story. And he only told his story one time, and then he stopped. He didn't write a tell-all book. He didn't get paid for that podcast. He didn't go throw anybody under the bus that he didn't feel didn't deserve it.
So that being said, that would make you think that he was telling the truth.
I believe, but what do I know? I'm a fan. I mean, I'll be straight with you. I'm a fan of Punk, so I can't say that for sure. I'd like to think he's being honest, but how do I know? I don't know the guy. But who knows? Could be. But he was so different, right? In a business where everything's been done, it's already been done. Punk was different. He was his own man. He didn't care. And if you didn't want him, he'd quit and go somewhere else. He didn't care. He didn't need the job. And there's one part of the podcast, I'm not going to cover the whole thing here, obviously, but there's one part where he talked about lying in bed one night next to AJ. And he's like, I'm hurt, I'm frustrated, I'm tired. I know I'm going to marry this woman. I know she's going to be my wife. And then I started to think, after looking at the zeros in my bank account, it started to occur to me, what am I doing in my life? Why am I even doing this anymore? What is the point anymore? And I'm like, you talk about a guy that suddenly had self-awareness of who he was as a man. Forget being a pro wrestler. Who he was as a man. And he began to seriously question, what am I doing with my life right now? I mean, how many of us can really do that and walk away from a job, walk away from our way of life because we are just not happy? How many of us can actually do that? Not many of us.
Yeah, very few have that luxury.
And I know what you're saying. Well, Punk had a bank account full of money. He did. He had a lot of cash. Probably still does. But the point of the matter is, Punk made a change because, again, he wasn't happy. He wasn't happy with his station in life. He wasn't happy with the business that was supposed to be fun. In his words, it was no longer fun.
I mean, I respect him for, making that choice, even though I miss his presence on the show.
I do too. But you talk about a guy who would have succeeded the territory system. I mean, he would have been in the 80s of the Jim Crockett era, the territory days. He would have been sort of an odd addition because of all the tattoos and whatnot. But as far as his ring style and what he could do and his attitude toward the business, I think he would have been a great addition at that time. I like that old school mentality. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he had the old school mentality for sure. Part of the turn signal, folks, we have found our exit. So today was not about pro wrestling. Today was about comic books. But on the ride back, we thought, hey, we've got time. Let's talk about a few pro wrestling things. Which we did, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent.
So, I miss the old days. And I'm just trying to put a cap on this, but I miss the old days. I miss the NWA. I miss Rick versus Dusty and the Horsemen and the Rock and Rolls versus the Midnights, and I miss Magnum. And there'll never be another time like that. It's kind of sad, actually.
It is. I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah. But thank God for the network. Thank God for YouTube. You can go back and relive this stuff. Hey, so we're back. That was the end of the audio. I know it kind of cut off a bit abruptly there, but as we were saying as the show wrapped up there, we definitely do have the network, and that's a good thing. And people give WWE a lot of flack because of the kind of product they've presented in the past and the product they present now to a large degree. But to be honest with you, WWE is the face of pro wrestling to the world. And it always has been, and especially in this country. So they have a great deal of responsibility to get it right. Not just their product, but for the sake of preserving history. Because if there is going to be a Pro Wrestling Preservation Society, it needs to be run by WWE, don't you think? Because they're the ones with the tape libraries. They're the ones with the footage. They're the ones with the archives. They're the ones that have everything it takes to make a WWE network to begin with. So if they don't do justice to the business, if they don't do justice to the promotions that have come in the past, well, then guess what? There really there's no point in their existence, is there? You can talk to me all day about how WWE is a corporation. It's out to make money and turn a profit, and I understand that. But at the same time, again, they have a massive responsibility, not only to the fans, but to the men and women who came before and, gave their blood, sweat, and tears to make pro wrestling what it is today. There's not enough emphasis on the old school. And I know for you guys out there who are NFL fans, you've been through this for years. If you're in your 40s or over, especially, you've been through this, where there's always been talk about how the NFL needs to take care of its old I was going to say old timers. That's like a pro wrestling term, so I mean no disrespect. But how NFL needs to take care of its veteran players, and how those guys, sacrifice, their livelihoods on the field. I mean, pro football in the NFL is a very brutal, punishing sport. I mean, it takes everything within you to play that game, much in the same way it takes everything within you to become a professional wrestler. And athletes have a great deal of respect for pro wrestlers. Not all of them, perhaps, but a good majority of them do, especially the NFL guys, because they know. And any football player that's attempted to become a pro wrestler, it's a whole different ball game. And guys like Goldberg, Ron Simmons, even Ric Flair could tell you that. I mean, it's just a whole different animal. And the skill, the talent, the cardio, the psychology, everything that goes along with being a pro wrestler, everything that it requires a different mindset. It requires a unique individual to be able to not only grasp the concepts of professional wrestling and make it work, but to also be able to be successful at it. There's a lot of things that we've not talked about here lately. I've been off the grid, actually. I was going to say on the grid. I'm back on the grid now. Well, almost. I've been off the grid for the past week or so, week and a half, 2 weeks, due to vacation. And it was a great vacation. I got a chance to sort of recharge the batteries. So we're going to be getting back on the grid very soon with Boink Studios, as well as all the content from Bleacher Report, Camel Clutch Blog, Sportskeeda as well. So we are attempting to get caught up on podcasting as well. So forgive the lag in content, but we are working on it. I say that to say this. There's been a lot happen in the past, 12, 10, 11 days, whatever it's been. There's been a lot that's happened in WWE. And we've seen a heel turn, and we've seen some, that led to the dissolution of a tag team, namely Enzo and Big Cass. And we've seen a new Mr. Money in the Bank crowned in Baron Corbin, and a new Miss Money in the Bank crowned, Carmella, by way of James Ellsworth. A lot of controversy. People still buzzing over that one. She's a heel. I mean, come on, man. But we've got plenty of opportunities to talk about that. We've got some shows coming up on the way. I've got a feeler out there for an interview that could happen around the fall, and we're talking around September, October. So keep your ears and eyes open for that one. That's going to be fun. Basically, what we're throwing to you today. Again, this was fun for me. I enjoyed talking about the business. You guys know that I always have. I could talk to anybody about pro wrestling. I was getting ready to say I like to talk to smart fans, but let me give you a quick story. My mom, God bless her, is getting ready to have a birthday. And she is going to be, she was born in 52. Oh my, let me do the math here. Isn't that terrible? 52. Give me some help. 65 years old. Is that right? 65? Yeah, 2017. I don't like to think about my mom's age. It kind of brings me down. You know what I'm saying? Because I just, makes me think how short we have. Of course, none of us are promised tomorrow, myself included, or you. Don't let it drag you down, but it's life, man. It's how it is, right? But my mom is still a true mark, 100%. So is my stepdad, true marks. And they're fun to be around because we talk about it, and she hates the heels and she loves the faces. She does exactly what she's been conditioned to do since the time I was a kid and watched it with her. And you would look at that on some degree and say, well, how can she not be smartened up to it by now? How does she not know? Here's the thing. My mom doesn't care. She knows it's rigged. She knows it's predetermined. She knows they're not trying to kill each other in the ring. But guess what? She doesn't care. For any of you cynics out there who long for the days of a return to kayfabe, that will never happen, by the way. You guys understand that, right? Kayfabe is dead and buried. That thing's deader than the Undertaker's ever been, that's for sure. But for any of you guys out there that long for the return of kayfabe, you would love my mom because she's fun to be around. Because, again, hates the heels, loves the faces. And we try to have conversations. She'll say, what do you think's going to happen on Sunday? Or what do you think's going to happen on Raw? What do you think's going to happen on SmackDown? So I'll tell her. And I'll be like something about Owens or Nakamura, who she has no idea who Nakamura is because my parents are not, they're not online, if you know what I'm saying. Probably never will be. They got a couple of phones, but they don't surf the net on them. So they have no clue who Nakamura is. So I'm trying to educate both of them as to what a beast Shinsuke Nakamura can be in the ring. What a fantastic talent he is. He's a pro wrestler. Nakamura is born to be a pro wrestler. I don't know if she quite grasped the concept of Nakamura yet, but, I'm working with her on. The boy's going to work on her and see what happens. So, yeah, that kind of thing right there gives me hope. Not that people are ignorant, not that they fall for everything that's told to them, but that there's still the possibility of having fun. And people just, and dude, I'm guilty of this just as much as you guys are, I'm sure. We tend to take this stuff way too seriously. I mean, we really lose a lot of sleep over who wins and loses. You want to know who's not losing any sleep over? The guys actually in the ring. They're not losing sleep over this stuff at all. I'm not saying they don't enjoy what they do. I'm sure they do. I'm sure a lot of them grew up fans from the time they were kids to this point now, like a lot of us did. And they love what they do for a living. They don't want a real job. They want to do this for a living. This is their dream. And that's amazing. That's awesome. And kudos to them for following the dream, making it happen. But do you really think that they're losing on a sleep over who wins and loses like we do? I'm not going to blast you for that, and I don't expect to get blasted myself because I have made this comparison. I've made this comparison so many times, but it bears repeating. I've made it ad nauseum, actually. And the comparison is this. NBA fans are identical to us. NFL fans are identical to us. And if you don't see that, then you obviously don't follow other sports and are passionate about them like a lot of us are. And here's what I mean by that. There's not an NFL fan who's I'm talking about an avid fan, like he would be a pro wrestling fan, who doesn't sit there and watch a game and pick apart the plays. Why did he throw to him? Why didn't they run the ball? I mean, you tell me that doesn't happen. Okay, tell me that they don't get criticized. How do you explain guys heckling NBA players from courtside? How do you explain that? They're trying to get on TV? Well, maybe. But chances are they're sitting there and they're seeing something the players are the ones that are in the game, right? They're the ones running the plays. But here's this doofus in the front row. Well, why? How did you miss that? And people turn around, they snap at him or whatever, and it makes the highlights of ESPN. The guy in the front row goes crazy or whatever. That's a pro wrestling fan, guys. I mean, people act like this is some kind of foreign concept, that this thing began in the business of pro wrestling. It's been like this for years. Ask Chicago Cubs fans, they'll tell you. You know what I'm talking about, too. But, for anyone to suggest that this thing started in the business of pro wrestling, and I don't get that at all. I don't get that in the slightest. It's always been like this. I don't want to say rabid, because rabid suggests, irrational, which a lot of us can be. But avid pro wrestling fans, avid sports fans are pretty well identical to each other. They have great passion for the game, true love of the sport. They want to see the athletes in the sport do well. They want their favorites to win. They can see when something goes wrong, and they want to point it out because they've schooled themselves on how the game is played. Maybe they even play themselves in their backyard. And that's where some of the differences are, of course. How many guys are actually working in the ring, okay? But in a lot of other ways, they're identical. And people need to get off their soapbox and stop preaching to fans. Al Snow took to Twitter a few days ago and started preaching to fans about how we should just shut up and enjoy it and quit trying to figure it out and all this, and we'll be a lot happier and all this, that, and the other. All due respect to Al Snow, I get what he's saying, especially the comparison I just made to my mom, the story I told about my mom. It's 100% true, her and my stepdad both. But at the same time, preaching down to us isn't going to help anything. I mean, if they want to make it, if Al Snow wanted to make a comment, perhaps the comment should have been, hey guys, I appreciate your passion, but, be patient, because maybe patience is key here. You know what I mean? And I don't think Al meant disrespect. I've heard him on podcasts where he just, and I don't want to say he berates fans, but he points it out, and a lot of them do, and that's fine. And I don't take offense to it. What I take offense to is this whole notion that because we're not in the ring, we can't make a comment. A lot of us have been in the ring. The ring hurts, and it's a heck of a way to make a living, dude. Straight up. So the men and women in the ring, I applaud them, whether I like them or not, whether I can't stand their gimmicks or not, whether I think Vince should be, elevating them or not. It's not my call in the first place. I applaud all of them and try to show them as deep amount of respect as humanly possible. When I write columns about who should or should not go over, or try to predict what's going to happen at the pay-per-view or on Raw or SmackDown or whatever, it's not meant with any hatred. It's not meant with any animosity. I've never written like that. Maybe I did in the beginning. I'm an open book, dude. Feel free to go back and look at my writing, 7 years ago versus today. You're going to see a distinct difference in style because I quit making it personal. I would take shots at Hogan, even Undertaker, Rock, Cena. But you know what? That at the end of the day, you're not going to do anything but alienate those guys, and you're also going to alienate the readers. And that's the last thing I want to do. I don't have any intention of kissing up to anyone and playing favorites, of course. But at the same time, man's got to be smarter than that. I mean, these are the guys we're tagging in these columns on Facebook and Twitter and all over social media. And then, they're the ones that we want to read our stuff and give us approval. Not that we're seeking approval all the time to justify what we're doing. But for a guy like, and I've got this before from Jericho and Shawn Michaels and a couple other guys on Twitter where they'll be like, great calling, Tom. I appreciate it. And it's not like it was, and I call them praise pieces where all I did for 1,000 words is praise Chris Jericho as the second coming of Christ. And, and then I'm going to tag him because of course he'll like it. But within the confines of those 1,000 words, I try to make as many logical comparisons and deliver as much logic actually as I possibly can, because that is my job as a writer. Not to fill your head full of rumor and innuendo and all other garbage, but to bring it to you like a man and give you my full analysis and try to be as unbiased as humanly possible, which is what I attempt to do. And now I'm ranting. But anyway, I got to this because I was telling you that we've got a lot on the horizon. I'm going to roll my sleeves up next week and get to work. In the meantime, I'm going to enjoy the next few days of my vacation. I hope that you are enjoying yourself as well and that you enjoyed this podcast. Segue. So this has been episode number 76. I want to thank my good friend, my comrade, my brother in arms, Mr. Mick Ramsey, for joining us on this episode of The Main Event. And hope you enjoyed him as well. He's a soft-spoken guy, but he's a huge fan. He always has been, always will be. That's what I love about him. So we'll have him back on the show again real soon. Please, folks, when you get done listening to this, or you could do it right now, actually, go check us out, boinkstudios.com. You'll find the links to my page on Bleacher Report, on Sportskeeda, on Camel Clutch blog. You'll find our sister podcasts, Tom and Kyle's Comedy Action Hour and Tom Clark's 30-Minute Fun Show. You'll find a link to get to our email, tomclarkbr@yahoo.com, and our company email, boinkstudios@yahoo.com. By the way, thanks for the emails, guys. Appreciate the fan letters, as it were. I appreciate it very much. It means a lot to me and to us here, the whole crew, actually. And very awesome of you guys to reach out the way you do. It's much appreciated. You'll also find links to us on Twitter and Facebook. Please check us out. Give us a follow. We will follow you back. I promise. BoinkStudios.com is your home for all things pro wrestling, comic book, movies, TV, and much more. That's all the plugging I'm going to do. Thanks again for hanging out with us, man. We will be back real soon, and we will see you next time for the next episode. Take a breath, folks. It's on the way, I promise you. Thanks a bunch. See you next time on Tom Clark's Main Event.